Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajākacārya Ashtotara Sata Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Samstapakacārya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. So this morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, titled The Lord in the Heart, Text 4. Is it text 4? Okay. Satyāṁ kṣitau kim kaśipoḥ prayāsair bāhau svasiddhe hi upabarhaṇaiḥ kim saty añjalau kim purudhānna-pātryā dig-valkalādau saty kim dukūlaiḥ satyāṁ kṣitau kim kaśipoḥ prayāsair bāhau sva-siddhe upabarhaṇaiḥ kim saty añjalau kim purudhānna-pātryā dig-valkalādau saty kim dukūlaiḥ satyāṁ kṣitau kim kaśipoḥ prayāsair bāhau svasiddhe upabarhaṇaiḥ kim saty añjalau kim purudhānna-pātryā dig-valkalādau saty kim dukūlaiḥ satyāṁ kṣitau kim kaśipoḥ prayāsair bāhau svasiddhe upabarhaṇaiḥ kim saty añjalau kim purudhānna-pātryā dig-valkalādau saty kim dukūlaiḥ Vaishnavi. Satyāṁ, being in possession. kṣitau, earthly flats. Kim, where is the necessity? Kaśipoḥ, of beds and cots. Prayāsair, endeavoring for. Bāhau, the arms. Sva-siddhe, being self-sufficient. He, certainly. Upabarhaṇaiḥ, bed and bedstead. Kim, what is the use? Saty, being present. Añjalau, the palms of the hands. Kim, what is the use? Purudhā, varieties of. Anna, eatables. Pātryā, by the utensils. Dig, open space. Valkala-ādau, skins of trees. Saty, being existent. Kim, what is the use of? Dukūlaiḥ, clothes. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation: when there are ample earthly flats to lie on, what is the necessity of cots and beds? When one can use his own arms, what is the necessity of a pillow? When one can use the palms of his hands, what is the necessity of varieties of utensils? When there is ample covering or the skins of trees, what is the necessity of clothing? Purport: the necessities of life for the protection and comfort of the body must not be unnecessarily increased. Human energy is spoiled in a vain search after such illusory happiness. If one is able to lie down on the floor, then why should one endeavor to get a good bedstead or soft cushion to lie on? If one can rest without any pillow and make use of the soft arms endowed by nature, there is no necessity of searching after a pillow. If we make a study of the general life of the animals, we can see that they have no intelligence for building big houses, furniture, and other household paraphernalia, and yet they maintain a healthy life by lying down on the open land. They do not know how to cook or prepare foodstuff, yet they still live healthy lives more easily than the human being. This does not mean that human civilization should revert to an animal life, or that the human being should live naked in the jungles without any culture, education, and sense of morality. An intelligent human cannot live the life of an animal. Rather, man should try to utilize his intelligence in arts and science, poetry and philosophy. In such a way, he can further the progressive march of human civilization. But here the idea given by Srila Shukadeva Goswami is that the reserve energy of human life, which is far superior to that of animals, should simply be utilized for self-realization. Advancement of human civilization must be towards the goal of establishing our lost relationship with God, which is not possible in any other form of life, which is not possible in any form of life other than the human. One must realize the nullity of the material phenomenon, considering it a passing phantasmagoria, and must endeavor to make a solution to the miseries of life. Self-complacence with a polished type of animal civilization geared to sense gratification is delusion, and such a civilization is not worthy of the name. In pursuit of such false activities, a human being is in the clutches of Maya or illusion. Great sages and saints in the days of yore were not living in palatial buildings furnished with good furniture and so-called amenities of life. They used to live in huts and groves and sit on the flat ground, and yet they have left immense treasures of high knowledge with all perfection. Srila Rupa Goswami and Srila Sanatan Goswami were high-ranking ministers of state, but they were able to leave behind them immense writings on transcendental knowledge, while residing only for one night underneath one tree. They did not live even 2 nights under the same tree. And what to speak of well-furnished rooms with modern amenities. And still, they were able to give us most important literatures of self-realization. So-called comforts of life are not actually helpful for progressive civilization. Rather, they are detrimental to such progressive life. In the system of Sanatan Dharma, of 4 divisions of social life and 4 orders of progressive realization, there are ample opportunities and sufficient directions for a happy termination of the progressive life, and the sincere followers are advised herein to accept a voluntary life of renunciation in order to achieve the desired goal of life. If one is not accustomed to abiding by the life of renunciation and self-abnegation from the beginning, one should try to get into the habit at a later stage of life as recommended by Srila Shukadeva Goswami, and that will help one to achieve the desired success. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to Canto 2, Chapter 2 in the matter of the Lord in the heart, Text 4. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Gyananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Caitanya Manobishtham Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamlam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tham Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Namaam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swaminiti Namine Namacharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayine Gaurakatha Dhamadaya Nagaragramatarine Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Gopi Paranadana Dase Iti Namine Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtai Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sandubhe Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatamaham bande Shri Gurudantharinam yat kripatamaham bande Paramananda Madhavam Shri Caitanya Ishwaram Katanchana smrite yasmin dushkaram sukaram bhavet Vismrite viparitam syat Shri Caitanyam namamitam. So Shukdev Goswami in these in this part of the Bhagavatam, in fact, when he begins to answer the questions by the sages, he first of all tries to destroy the concept of modern civilization, which is based on increasing the necessities of the body, because as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the more one feeds sense gratification, the more it grows. The more one provides sense gratification, the more the desire grows. And so to facilitate that sense gratification, one gets into this whole endeavor of trying to make the material world very comfortable. Now this is a complete display of ignorance. So Shukadeva Goswami tries to completely destroy that. So Prabhupada, if we notice, he is very strong. He uses his word phantasmagoria. Even in the earlier purports, he used the same expressions, phantasmagoria. What does that mean, phantasmagoria? Just like if you have a computer screen in front of you, you can see fascinating things on the screen. In reality, all that is there is 0 and 1. The whole display of a computer is dependent on only 0 and 1. What really exists is 0 and 1. So what is manifested there is based on that 0 and 1. So like that, material nature is what exists. Material nature is permanent, is eternal. As we study in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada explains there are 5 subject matters. So material nature also is permanent, is eternal. So what is not eternal then? The manifestations of matter. So all the different manifestations that we see, forms of different kinds of people, objects, so many, everything that we see, this whole manifestation is what is called the phantasmagoria. Why? Because ultimately it does not exist. It exists for a certain period of time. It does exist, but for a very brief period of time. After that, it collapses. So as we say, from dust to dust. So we are born with certain material bodies, and the end of it, what happens? The body is burnt, finished. So everything merges back into the earth. So that is what is meant by phantasmagoria, which means that whatever you see in this brief period of time is existent only for that brief period of time. It has no relevance in eternity. It has no relevance whatsoever in eternity. Therefore, it is called phantasmagoria. So, whereas a spirit soul is eternal. So, for anything to have meaning, things should be eternal. So, this manifestation of material nature is fully temporary in the sense that nothing of it is going to prolong eternally. All manifestations are going to be completely destroyed. Completely destroyed. So all that you're going to be left with finally is just matter. That's it. Unmanifested, the matter by itself. And so therefore, all the different things that we are attracted to, Prabhupada calls it as a phantasmagoria. Yet, the problem, however, is that if we don't have that attraction, what else do we have? Nothing. It's nothing. So, what does the conditioned soul do in such a circumstance? No. So, they're basically hopeless. So, it's natural that the conditioned soul feels attracted to even the phantasmagoria. At least you have phantasmagoria. Otherwise, there's nothing. So, if we just philosophize and say, ultimately, it's all matter. Okay, what do we do with that information? Realistically, you can't do anything with that information. So, we continue to engage with the phantasmagoria. So, here if we notice in these texts in the Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami is recommending that we decrease our engagement with this phantasmagoria. And Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he gives the example of Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. How they did not even live under the same tree for more than one night. So they were not interested in any form of material comfort. They would sleep under a tree just to take some rest. That's it. Not interested in enjoying material amenities. So Prabhupada explains how was it possible for them. He explains this in a lecture, very nicely explains this. So the Goswamis, we have the song Tyaktva Turnamashesha Mandalapati Shrenim Sada Tuchva bhuktvādīna ganeshako karunaya kaupīna kantāśritau. So how did they, it says that tyaktva turnam ashesha mandalapati shrenim sada tuchavad. So Prabhupada explains, in Sanskrit the word tucha means insignificant. So they just kicked out all these, what people normally aspire for, an aristocratic life. They just kicked it away. Insignificant. And what did they do? They were wearing loin cloth, just a coffin in a small cloth, and they were just wandering around Vraj. And so Prabhupada says, because again it's explained in the same song by Srinivasacharya. Why? Because gopi bhava rasamrita abdilahari kallola magnam muhu. So because they were absorbed in gopi bhava rasamrita, the rasa means juice, as Prabhupada translates, mellow, juice, amrita, the nectar of rasa. The nectar of what rasa? Gopi bhava. So because they were absorbed in gopi bhava rasamritabdi lahari, because of which they could do all these things very easily. So Prabhupada explains that this is Krishna consciousness. That by the process of Krishna consciousness is so attractive that we are naturally drawn to decrease our engagement in material life. So, and Prabhupada also warns us, this cannot be done artificially. Sometimes we see that devotees, they try to practice a lot of austerities. At least I've seen that. Sometimes devotees try to practice a lot of austerities. After some time they give up. Because we don't practice austerities as something separate. For us, we practice only one thing called Krishna consciousness. Everything else comes as a result of that practice of Krishna consciousness. Now, when we say practice of Krishna consciousness, it's very important to understand what kind of practice are we referring to. What is Prabhupada referring to as the practice of Krishna consciousness? So we all know that the Srimad Bhagavatam is our book. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam. So when we say the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, what is our book? What is our book? It is the Bhagavatam. This is our proof of what we practice. So we follow the recommendation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the recommendation of the Srimad Bhagavatam is, whether one is akama, free from material desires, whether one is sarvakama, full of material desires, and or whether one is moksha kama, one is desirous of liberation, irrespective of what one desires, even sarvakama, full of material desires, still there is only one prescription that the Bhagavatam gives. Tivrena bhakti yogena. That's it. That is it. So when we say practice of Krishna consciousness, we mean Tivra Bhakti. And that is the program that Srila Prabhupada gave us. So we should not lose sight of this fact that we are practicing yoga. Because generally the word yoga brings up the connotation of sitting in meditation for 100,000 years on deer skin and all these things. Very tough. Very tough. So, so the word yoga means to connect. So we have a process which is very easy compared to the toughness of dhyana yoga. But there is one thing that is common between dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga, and all streams of yoga. There is one thing which is very common, which is intensity of practice. There is no compromise on the intensity of practice. It is not that because it is easy, therefore we don't practice it intensely. So there is a difference between toughness and intensity. Something can be easy, but that does not mean that we can be distracted and okay, we can have a little bit material desires. Anyway, bhakti is so powerful. We can watch a few movies, we can attend some functions and social gatherings, and we can do a little bit of all these things. Bhakti is so powerful. No, but bhakti has to be practiced with that, with intensity. Therefore, Prabhupada gave us a certain program. Wake up in the morning, attend Mangalarati, attend the morning program, the Bhagavatam class. Prabhupada said one has to be Krishna conscious 24 hours of the day. So if we lose sight of that, then everything is finished. But if one practices Krishna consciousness with that mood, that this is what His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada has given us. This is what all the acharyas have given us. This valuable gift of Bhakti Yoga. But it has to be practiced intensely. It is easy, but one has to practice it intensely. Then one experiences Krishna Bhakti Rasa. Because the Prabhupada took this word, Krishna consciousness, from the expression of Rupa Goswami called Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati. So that is how we you took the word Krishna consciousness from there, which means that Mati means consciousness. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Mati. Bhavita means one which is saturated with what? Krishna Bhakti Rasa. The juice of Krishna consciousness. The juice, of the juice of Bhakti Rasa. The consciousness which is saturated with the juice of Krishna, juice of Bhakti Rasa, or which is saturated with Bhakti Rasa, is called Krishna consciousness. So we shouldn't lose sight of this fact. If we are not experiencing higher and higher and higher and higher and higher taste in Krishna consciousness, we are definitely not practicing Bhakti intensely. Because this is a definite result of intensely practicing Bhakti, that one will definitely experience higher and higher and higher and higher stages, higher and higher taste in Krishna consciousness. That is actually easy. All that we have to do is apply the process of Krishna consciousness intensely. If we are distracted, in fact the Bhagavatam very clearly says, even if you have material desires, it is not a license to become lax in the process of bhakti. One has to practice bhakti intensely even if one has material desires. Because the process of intense practice of bhakti, it diminishes material desires and also provides us with this Krishna Bhakti Rasa, which we are hankering for. So, Cheto Darpanamarjanam, Bhavamaha Davagni Nirvapanam. So, if we look at the very first verse of the Shikshashtaka, it speaks about Anandambudhi Vardhanam. Very first verse. Ananda Ambudhi, the ocean of happiness of Krishna consciousness. And it keeps increasing and increasing and is increasing. This is the very first verse of the Shikshashtakam. So, when we practice Krishna consciousness with the intensity which Srila Prabhupada has given us, then we factually experience this Anandambudhi Vardhanam. Therefore, one is able to minimize the demands of the body more and more, more and more, more and more, more and more. So, Prabhupada says this is the test, that as one practices Krishna consciousness, the experience of Krishna consciousness gets better and better and better and better, and the experience of one tastes that Bhakti Rasa more and more, more and more, more and more. One begins to get intoxicated by that Bhakti Rasa, and because of that, one eventually comes to the stage of rejecting everything material as tuchha, insignificant. The first verse of the Nectar of Instruction, in fact, speaks about tolerating the urges of the senses. Tolerating the urges of the senses. This is usually the first stage of sense control. It is not like some very exalted, elevated state and all that. It's a very elementary state of Krishna consciousness. In fact, it's common to all the yoga processes, which is to tolerate the urges of the senses, which is classified as the urge to speak, the urge of the mind, and urge of the body. This is how it is classified as. Prabhupada also refers to that in the first purport to the first text of the Nectar of Instruction. So this is the very first stage of practice of Krishna consciousness. One at least tolerates the urges of the senses. Eventually, one comes to the stage like the Goswamis, nidrahara viharakadi vijitau, which means one is not tolerating anymore. One has conquered over the urges. One has conquered over the urges. Like we see Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. They don't eat, they don't sleep. They've completely conquered over those urges. It's not that Parikshit Maharaj had some urge, he was tolerating the urge of eating and sleeping. Similarly, Shukadeva, they were not tolerating the urges of eating and sleeping because they had already conquered over those urges. So the very first stage of Krishna consciousness begins with tolerating the urges. And tolerating the urges is possible only when one experiences Krishna Bhakti Rasa. Unless one experiences some taste, how is it going to be possible to tolerate the urges of the senses? So we sing generally every day in the Bhagavatam class, Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. So the translation of that says that all that is inauspicious to the heart is almost completely destroyed. It doesn't say it fully destroyed. So one Mataji in one of my classes, she asked this question last week, that why does it say almost destroyed? And I said, well, that's a good point. I said, okay, I need to check this and get back to you. But before I could check and get back, she herself got back to me with something that Prabhupada himself explained. That's quite interesting. So I'll just read that here. It's a very small paragraph. Prabhupada, this is from a lecture on the first verse of the 7th chapter in San Diego, 1st of July, 1972. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu. Prayeshu means almost cleansed, not completely clean. So we don't claim that we have become liberated from all dirty things. There are so many dirty things still. But little clearance will help us to become a devotee of the Lord. So this is the point, that all of us have taken to Krishna consciousness because we have experienced some taste in Krishna consciousness. All of us have experienced some taste, so which impelled us to take up to this Krishna consciousness. So that is the beginning. But one has to build on that taste. And definitely, all of us know that the taste that we experienced is higher than anything else that we've experienced in life. That's why we become convinced, right, that we need to take up to Krishna consciousness and things like that. But the problem is that that taste is not immediate and spontaneous. We have to work for it. Of course, in the beginning, one goes to temple, one gets a taste. But after a while, one has to work for it. Whereas sense gratification is immediate, it's spontaneous, and things like that. So sometimes devotees ask this question, that why do devotees fall down? When Krishna consciousness is higher taste, they've experienced it already. Why do they fall down? They fall down because it's not immediate and spontaneous yet. And unless we practice Krishna consciousness in an intense manner, we have to bring it to that stage of spontaneity and immediacy. So then one does not fall down. So therefore, one has to cross the stage of anartha nivritti and reach the stage of nishtha. So one has to, as one progressively experiences higher and higher Krishna Bhakti Rasa, then one is able to give up all the material engagements and come to the stage of nishtha. Now, this is also a very scientific process which has been very nicely explained by Ramanujacharya in his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. I've read this once before, but I guess many of you were not there in the class, many months ago. So I'll just read it again. It's very nicely classified, the different stages, how one progresses on the path of bhakti, especially in terms of sense control. Just give me a second. Okay, this is from Ramanujacharya's commentary on Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 55 to 58. These are the texts dealing with what is the behavior of a Sthita Prajna. How does he talk? How does he walk? So this appears in that section. There are 4 levels of sense control, and it begins at the first stage, where when we see a worldly desirable sense object, we recognize it as a desirable object and we are impulsively attracted to it. So when we see a worldly desirable sense object, we see it as a desirable object and are impulsively attracted to it. So we have to turn away from it. We have to turn away from it. So here, neither the mind. Okay, this is the stage of what? This is the stage of endeavor. There's endeavor here. Therefore, it's called, technically, it's called yatamana, the stage of endeavor. Then comes the next level of sense control, where when we see a worldly desirable sense object, we know that it is a desirable object, but we are not impulsively attracted to it. There's no impulsive attraction. But the mind feels happiness, slight happiness, upon seeing that object. So, this is the stage called vyatireka. The first stage is the senses are also drawn towards that object impulsively. Both the mind and the senses are drawn towards the object. The second stage is the senses are not drawn towards the object. Senses are, we are able to restrain the senses, but the mind feels happiness upon seeing that sense object. The third stage is that the senses are not drawn towards it, towards the sense object, and the mind is also not drawn. Neither does the mind feel any happiness on seeing it. It's kind of a neutral stage. So the second stage is called, first stage is called stage of endeavor, it's called yatamana. The second stage is called vyatireka. The third stage is called ekendriya. You reach the state of neutrality. Neither the mind nor the senses are drawn towards it. Neither does the mind feel any happiness on seeing that sense object. The final stage of self-control is that when we see a desirable sense object, neither the mind nor does the senses recognize it as a desirable object. That is the stage of vashikara. There is a stage of absolute control of the mind and propensities of the senses, where there is full control. When we look at an object, we don't even look at it as a object worthy of enjoyment, which is what the Bhagavatam is teaching us anyway. That there is nothing enjoyable in this material world. All human forms or animal forms are all a combination of blood, mucus, air, just configured in this very attractive manner. So Mahamaya just captivates us. That's all. But reality, that's why they say beauty is only skin deep, right? Because below the skin, what is it? Horrible. But it's a skin which creates that sense of beauty. So when someone is in that stage of vashikara or absolute self-control, so there one sees reality as it is. Reality. One actually sees reality. One is not captivated by seeing the different forms in this material world, because he can see this is all just an arrangement of matter. And in fact, I mean, I was explaining this to my Guru Maharaj, Jayapatak Maharaj, and he's told me that there's one more level. And then he was explaining about how Prabhupada, when he was in Calcutta temple, once he was explaining about Yamunacharya's verse, Yad Yad Avadi Mama Krishna Padar. Whenever I think of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, because I've been absorbed in Krishna consciousness, whenever I think of sex life with a woman, I spit at that thought. So Jayapatak Maharaj is explaining that he was in the room in Calcutta when Prabhupada is explaining that verse. Prabhupada actually spat. So I had a similar thing, I had a similar experience with Jananivas Prabhu. So once I was in Prabhupada's room chanting japa, and then Jananivas Prabhu came in. I think Vasantaranjani Mataji also was there at that point. She asked, Jananivas Prabhu to speak something about some Prabhupada's pastime, So Jananivas Prabhu also related a similar pastime, that when Prabhupada, when he quoted this verse in that room here in Lotus building, again he spat, But Jananivas Prabhu said, and his saliva was moving in slow motion. So this is Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada actually says this, that everywhere he says this, that the test of Krishna consciousness is that Krishna consciousness is so attractive that material sense gratification becomes disgusting. He says this, that this is the test. Again and again and again, everywhere throughout his lectures, he says this very clearly, that this is how we test ourselves, that as our attraction for Krishna is increasing, we are able to feel disgust for material life. And this Ramanujacharya's classification into 4 helps us to see where are we, which level are we now. So are we transitioning, or are we fixed in some level, or where exactly we are situated. Therefore, Krishna consciousness is a science, because we can analyze ourselves, where are we now, where are we heading. And Prabhupada said this very clearly, that nobody needs to give you a certificate. You can yourself test that where are you in Krishna consciousness. On the Shraddha to Prema level, where are we? Similarly, this in terms of self-control, our acharyas have given so much elaborate information that everything is there in it for us. We just have to apply ourselves intensely and just follow the process. And it works. It works. Like Prabhupada says that if you want to be enthusiastic in Krishna consciousness, attend the morning program. You'll become helplessly enthusiastic, even if you don't want to be enthusiastic. If you somehow or the other attend the morning program with a proper mood, of course, then naturally we feel enlivened. So there's a whole program, there's a whole prescription which Prabhupada has given. We simply have to apply ourselves. And it is a science. It will work. It will work. It has worked for so many devotees, so it will work. And nobody else has to give us a certificate. We can ourselves see that the process is working. So I've been asked to stop at 8:45. So I think it's 8:47. Any comments, questions? Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So you were talking about the levels of sense control.
Yeah.
So talking about in the 3rd level,
Yeah.
neither mind or senses are attracted, and neither they feel happy. So then how they recognize the sense, like that desirable object?
No, okay. There is a difference between considering something undesirable and considering something disgusting. One is neutral, right? You're not interested in something. Other is you're feeling disgust for something. That's the difference. Yes, I'll repeat. Okay.
Prabhuji, my query is that, like Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, we know that a verse from Sixthastakam.
Yeah.
But in our practical life, we do not experience that, the increase of that happiness. So what is the remedy where we actually lacking as a practicing devotee, especially where we are lacking?
Prabhupada explains in the first, okay, the question is that Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, but we don't experience that in our lives of practice. So where are we lacking? It's not that everybody does not experience. There are a lot of people who experience it. So Prabhupada explains in the Nectar of Instruction, in the preface he says, advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower. Attitude of this is very, very important. So Prabhupada's, what is it, if someone were to ask you, what is the greatest thing that we have inherited from Prabhupada? What is it? What would you answer? I'm just asking a question. What would you answer? If someone, what is the greatest thing that we inherited from Prabhupada? Yes. But his love. I mean, these are all valid answers. Mood. What about his mood? How do we describe his mood? I mean, the answer is correct actually. But how do we describe his mood? Desire to spread Krishna consciousness. Yes. Okay, I'll answer this question. So, Prabhupada said, I don't know Krishna. I know my Guru Maharaj, and he knows Krishna. And repeatedly, Prabhupada emphasized this fact. Whatever I am, whatever success I've attained, is I believed 100% in the words of my Guru Maharaj. This is the greatest legacy that we inherited from Prabhupada. That in fact, Prabhupada, during his physical presence, he said this, that my disciples, when he was especially in Mayapur, when God brothers would criticize, Western disciples for lack of apparent aspects of Vedic culture, Prabhupada said, my disciples, they may have different disqualifications, but they have one great qualification. Whatever I say, they believe. So this is the greatest thing that we inherited from Prabhupada. With that, this is Prabhupada's own mood, which he actually transmitted to us. So if we practice Krishna consciousness with that mood, whatever Prabhupada has given us is fully right. It will work. If we have that faith, it will work. So that if we practice with that attitude, there will be a big difference. That whatever Prabhupada has given us is fully right and it will work. And of course, we have to be careful about offenses. That, generally, when one practices Krishna consciousness, one's attraction for Krishna increases. But sometimes sense gratification may come back if we commit offenses. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that very clearly. This is a sign that we are committing offenses because the desire for sense gratification should not come back. If it's coming back, we have to be careful. Otherwise, we keep progressing further and further and further and further. So the attitude is very, very important. That we know no one except Prabhupada. Of course, I'm not saying it in a, Prabhupada said we follow the acharya. All that is there. But all that I'm saying is that once we have that implicit faith in Srila Prabhupada, that everything that he has given is enough for us to attain love of God, and we simply need to follow that. Then we begin to experience that Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. Yes, please.
I've seen devotees who, even brahmacharis who've experienced Krishna consciousness, turn it down to watch a cricket game.
Pardon? Watching cricket game?
So does that mean the cricket game is a higher taste?
Does it mean cricket game is a higher taste? I've seen some brahmacharis watching cricket games. Does it mean that cricket games is a higher taste? First of all, it is a fallen condition that they're watching some frivolous sport, as Prabhupada would call it. In fact, in the first, after he initiated this first set of disciples, I think you may know this, that he posted that thing on the Matchless Gifts glass storefront. He used that specific, no unnecessary sporting, something like that he says. So okay, the point is that, as I was explaining before in the class, is that until Krishna consciousness becomes spontaneous, there always, sense gratification is very spontaneous, because we have been in this material world for millions of lifetimes of Brahma. So it's just practically untraceable. So many, although we did fall down, but it has been so long that it's practically untraceable. So sense gratification is very immediate, it's spontaneous. So therefore, sometimes that it may overtake our practice of Krishna consciousness, because Krishna consciousness has not yet become spontaneous or immediate. So it generally happens due to bad association, propaganda of the material world. When we start listening to the propaganda, or some devotee who is not properly fixed up, who think, it's okay, cricket matches, it's not sinful. So everything begins like that. The problem with, the way Maya works is that it tries to find the smallest loophole. They say enter like a needle, exit like a plow, right? So it finds the smallest loophole, and then it enters, and then slowly it becomes more and more, and before people realize they've already fallen down. Yes. Yes, Vijay.
You mentioned that only by intense practice of bhakti we can conquer over the material desires and some urges of the senses. But also we see this, the other system of yogas, the yogis also can conquer.
No, Prabhupada says by other processes of, yoga process, you cannot conquer over material desires fully. That's why they fall down again. So Prabhupada says that once they attain the stage of liberation, they still fall down. Because there is no sense of service to the Lord. It's all centered around I. That is still material desire, no? Because very concept of I, separate from the Lord, is a material desire. So even though one may have attained the stage of Brahma Sayujya, even impersonal liberation, still one falls down. Because there's no concept, only bhakti creates a sense of selflessness, taking away the focus from us to the service of the Lord. So they're not fully free from material desires. That's why they fall down. You could say, Prabhupada once explained something to the extent that there is still something. It's not that it's free. In fact, for the practice of bhakti, there are two things which are considered as obstacles: the desire for sense gratification and the desire for liberation. Both of them are considered equally bad, because both of them are centered around I. I want to enjoy, I want to renounce. So that's still material. Yes. Okay, we've got about 3 minutes. Yeah. There's little enjoyment. Isn't there a lot of enjoyment? Fear of other things becomes a major drive to follow bhakti. See, everything depends on attitude. Okay, it's like, how do we say? It's not material desires which is a problem. Maintaining a material desire is a problem. You know, like Kardama Muni, when he sees the Supreme Lord, if you look at his prayer, he says, "You have appeared personally in front of me." Still, the desire to have a wife, I still have that desire. He feels shameful about it, but but at the same time, he has the desire. What the world does he do? So he feels shameful about it. But he tells the Lord that I'm not able to overcome this desire. So although it's such an amazing thing, you appeared in front of me, still I'm not able to overcome it. He feels shameful about it. So if one is practicing Krishna consciousness out of fear or whatever, at least one can have the attitude, this is not the right thing to do, but let me somehow or the other practice bhakti. So one maintains that attitude of, the problem is that when we start thinking that this is also okay, that is also okay, there's only pure bhakti which is okay. Anything else is not okay. But we may not be in the stage of being free from all material desires. So at least one should have the right attitude towards those material desires. In the sense that, okay, I have this desire, I'm not able to overcome now. Of course, not sinful desires. I'm only talking about desires within the realm of dharma. Sinful desires cannot, there's no scope for there's no scope for gratifying sinful desires. But non-sinful desires, one can have that attitude, okay, I'm in this stage now, Krishna, please help me to progress further and further in bhakti. So if one maintains that attitude, so even if one may be doing it out of fear, as long as one knows that this is not how I'm supposed to practice, Krishna, please help me, he will help you. Time duration, Krishna. Krishna. In fact, Prabhupada says, even for that, Prabhupada says that Krishna consciousness should practice like a genuine cry of a child for its mother. Like children, like I've had 2 boys, so I've noticed that sometimes when they're small babies, if they cry a little bit, my wife wouldn't attend to them. But she knows the sound of the cry. So if it's a little intense, immediately she'll rush. So like that. So when we cry for Krishna, if it depends on the intensity of our cry, then Krishna will rush towards us. So that is important. So the quickness depends on our intensity of prayer. If you're not able to pray, at least we can pray that I don't have the intensity to pray. Like once Jayapatak Maharaj, once he was giving a class and he was saying that if you cannot cry for Krishna, cry that you cannot cry for Krishna. If you cannot do that, then cry that you cannot cry, you cry for Krishna. Like that he went on for a long time. So there's no Krishna consciousness is full of hope. So there is always a solution to everything. Okay, I think I'll stop here because it's 9 o'clock. Vanchakalpatarubhishya kripasundabhevcha paridhanam bhavanebhyo vaishnebhyo namo namah. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.